All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the newest Dota 2 competitive podcast show out there in the world. That is right. We are back. Myself, BreakyCPK, and I got my buddy Zrock as the co-host officially. This is our new show, finally coming back at you. It's been a while, Zrock. It's good to be back, though.
It really has been a while, yeah, a little over a month. I'm excited to get back into it. Honestly, we've been waiting to do this for a while.
Yeah. It's so again, it really to kind of go over not too much into what really happened, but as you may know if you're listening to the show, or maybe you don't. Simply put, we had a podcast show with the .P community for quite a while there. We had up almost 30 episodes, I want to say, actually. We're getting up to. So it was actually, a very successful show. I thought the .Pro show, but with the .P community, though, things changed to say the least. They then became now the Force Spirit over there. They're kind of doing their own thing. So we kind of broke off. We weren't sure what we were going to do and decided, honestly, we were getting a lot of messages. I mean, I don't know about you, Zrock, but I personally was getting a lot of messages from people being like, where's the podcast? Are you still going to do your thing? And that in itself, as well as frankly wanting to still do it, made us kind of create this show, I guess it's safe to say.
Yeah, honestly, most of the people that reached out to me were pubs in my games. I legitimately hit like 5 or 6 different people that said, "Where'd your show go?" Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So,
well, we're trying to make it work here. And so simply put, again, we're back now. And as you may have known or noticed, we have not actually set the title of the show.
because we don't have
honestly, we don't know. We don't really know where we want to go with the title. Frankly, we're just more concerned about the actual content itself and getting back into it. And rather than waiting all this time trying to figure out a title and even when we want to release the show, let's just start it, right? Like that was our mentality ultimately. Let's just go ahead and get things started. And so that's what we're doing here. Now, before we start getting into the content of the show, again, I want to go a little bit more into what to expect from this podcast show. So again, first things first, we don't really have a name for it yet. So right off the bat, if you guys have suggestions for names, feel free to send them our way, either myself or Zrock. Let us know what you think. Obviously, we'll think about it as well. But we definitely could use a clever name. We've had a couple that we've run through. It's it's kind of hit or miss, it feels like, but I want to give you guys the chance.
I feel like our name's just got to be Complexity Live, right? Isn't that the basis of the show?
Well, that was one that I brought up, but you kind of turned it down pretty quickly. So yeah, I guess we'll have to stay away from that. Now it's I may mention complexity once or twice every single show. That's bound to happen.
It happens, but yeah, we're just trying to do something here to have some fun. We're planning on doing this bi-weekly for now. Yeah, you had a couple details on a Patreon to talk about.
Yeah, so actually it's a good thing you bring up there. So first, not first off, but as we've been suggesting, some changes to this show. It's not going to be exactly the same as it was before. One of the bigger things, as you just mentioned, we plan to do it bi-weekly in the sense of every 2 weeks. Once every week was maybe getting to be where we're overlapping a lot. We kind of were rambling on because it was like kind of the same stuff from week to week. It felt like almost a lot of the time. So we want to try to do it once every 2 weeks this time around instead. On top of that, with the new podcast, we actually are planning to launch our Patreon page. And actually, as we put this episode live, I do plan to launch the Patreon page that we have, and we'll post it on our social media exactly where it is. But we got a Patreon page with the intentions of, getting support from the community in terms of making the show happen in a month-by-month basis, every 2 weeks at the very least at the beginning. Maybe we'll go back to every week depending on how things look. But, wanted to see, what kind of feedback and what kind of interest we can get from the community in terms of the Patreon here. So that's, we'll be launching that. And there are going to be some fun things, of course, that we will have in terms of incentive, I guess you could say, towards donating. I guess I'll just go over them right now. For $1 donation currently, it's basically a shout out that will be given you. And obviously any bit of donation helps. At $5 donations, it's I guess $5 donations is a shout out. $1, you're just awesome. You're just helping us out, I guess.
Breaky, if you're gonna sell out, you gotta sell out with confidence. That's just the way it goes.
I know.
Dollar, just show your support, man. If you got anything to give, that's great. $5, we'll give you a shout out on the show. I believe $25, we'll even go cast one of your games if you want, whether that's live and scheduled at a setup time, or you want to give us a replay ID, and we'll go ahead and upload it for you. But really, it's just a way to show that you guys are interested in the show, that you want to help us out. I mean, we've both got a lot of other things on our plate. Breaky's been running around to lands. I just got a new job. So life's a little bit chaotic, and just looking for a little more reason to keep pushing forward and make it better every week versus we kind of fell in a rut in the old one, didn't we? It
Yeah,
just kind of fell into the week by week. Same stuff. So we want to do new things. We want to be a little more exciting here. I don't know about you, but
exactly.
I'm ready to get into the show though.
You said that so much better than I was getting at. So I'm glad you did that. There you go, guys. So check out the Patreon if you want. If you don't, that's cool too. Obviously, just by supporting by listening to this is cool in itself. So with that said, let's get into it. We're gonna start with our talking points here. Like I mentioned before, the format's gonna be a little bit different. We hope that you like it. We'll see how it works out here. Where we wanted to start off, being a new show and everything, kind of catching things up, is this competitive circuit that's going on, really kind of recapping, not too much, but basically going over the current results, how things are looking in the circuit. Zrock, Virtus Pro, they are on top. They won the first major of the year, so obviously that helps. They
Yep.
deserve it, I assume, safe to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the big thing, right? That's how it goes. You have one major, the winner of the major's winning. That's kind of how the system should be. So
Yep.
I really like the way it is so far. VP stacked up at number 1, the second place team from the major secret sitting at number 2. And for all the people that say minors don't matter, here's kind of the do they thing, because Liquid's sitting at number 3 after basically getting third at a major, which was the same points as winning the minor. Then they've won 2 minors. So
Mhm.
they're showing if you're consistent at the minors, you can still put in some work. Um, yeah, that's where we're at right now. VP sitting at the top dog though.
So, so let me think. So we've had one major and two minor or three minors.
3.
We've had three minors, yeah, because Star Ladder, PGL Open, and Dota Pit. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The Dota Pit be the first one, of course, after the patch, and we'll get into that just a little bit later on. But so 3 minors, 1 major, 4 events in total. Again, we're looking at ultimately, I think I want to say 16 minors and 11 majors. So still a lot to come. Still a lot of events to come, a lot of points to be earned with this season. But do you think it's fair to suggest that how things are looking right now, is this telling, or is this us just kind of filling time right now while we're waiting for the season to move along here and more events to happen?
The only result I'll say is telling to me is Liquid. They've consistently done very well with the minors. They've won both of them they've attended. They got third in the major, which is still plenty respectable. They've consistently shown up since that post TI lull that we were always worried teams are going to have. So that's the one result that I would put a little bit of weight on. I don't think you can credit VP too much, though, for sitting top dog. I'm not saying they're a bad team. I'm not saying they're not a top 2 team or top 3 team in the world, but Hamburg was a terrible tournament.
It absolutely was. The format, obviously in itself, and to kind of just go a little bit more into that, the format. We start going into it in the preview in the first place. Like, what were they thinking? Like, it's 4 teams in each group. There's 8 teams in total. Which, first off, for a major, it is a little bit absurd. But then on top of that, the format leading into a single elimination 4-team bracket. Yeah, so for me to kind of go back to the question that I just asked you yourself, and I guess kind of agreeing with you ultimately, you really can't take too much from how the standings are looking right now. But they are still standings. I mean,
They are.
Virtus Pro did win. They're not the ones that chose the format, right?
Yeah,
So
the points are still points. I mean, it's more about setting your expectations going forward, not disqualifying the results, right? They still won, they still got the points, they still got the money, but I don't think you can take too much out of that. I mean, it was like a format that a fighting game community would have a local weekend tournament with or something. It was
mhm.
just bad. Like, this is, I don't know. Looking for more going forward. But yeah, they need to show up at one more big tournament for me. They need to show up at some tournament with a better format and do very well. And then I'll be more respective of the way they've been playing. But we do have a couple more results that factored into that. They didn't just get their points out of the major. They did get some points out of what was it, Dota Pit?
Dota, very little. I mean, 15 each, so no,
Indeed, but
not
Dota Pit
much.
was a better format.
Yes.
So as far as perspective and how well they did and how well they're gonna do going forward, that might mean a little more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
However, that is something else to take into consideration. There, of course, is the idea that Dota Pit happened literally the week of the patch coming out, 7.07. So then there's that, right? Where so I think that's even more of why we really can't take too much, because if anything, now that this new patch has hit, this patch that we're currently in is going to now lead us into the rest of the season, ideally into TI itself, right? Like I find it hard to believe that there's going to be another big overhaul patch. I mean, maybe I guess there could
well,
be. There's still a lot of time in there, but
that's the question that we're sitting at right now, right? And that's actually the next point I have on my little list to talk about is how is Valve going to schedule these patches? We do not
mhm,
really have a break until the last tournament pre-TI, and then there's about a month and a half off where teams can settle down and relax a bit, and then go in and play TI. The problem is if that's your only gap, you don't want to have a major balance patch right before TI. That kind of
yeah,
invalidates a lot of the point standings and everything you did going forward to get there. So I think I'm with you on that one. I think this is going to be our only major patch of the year. I think we're going to see balance patches more frequently than we have in the past, say every 2 weeks, every month, but they're going to be more minor. Changes to gold values, minor tweaks to damage numbers, nothing major in shaking up the system. And if this is what Valve wants to do going forward, that's fine. I just wish they'd be a little more vocal about it, where they say, okay, and I think it needs to happen immediately post TI next year. They just got to say,
yeah,
okay, well, 2 weeks after TI, we're having our major balance patch, and then that's your patch for the year. Because right now, this is a total clusterfuck. I'm not a big fan of it. Yeah,
yeah. No, definitely think that's a strong point. I mean, it's safe to say that this previous season kind of not that it came out of the blue necessarily, but again, it's kind of been put piece by piece together. There was never really a full, clear, very clear vision from the beginning, right? It was this idea of what they want to do to help support these third party tournaments and ultimately create the circuit, but we're having to run through this like I keep going back to. I've said suggestions many times before. This is the trial season, and that includes the patching process itself. That kind of goes back to ideally, yeah, after the TI, the big event, shortly after this big patch comes out that then leads into the new season, it all smoothly transitions. But this season is anything but smooth.
and there's
And
easy
that's going
ways
to
for
be
them
the
to
case.
fix that, though. I mean, next year, once this trial run's all said and done, if they find that the player numbers are declining because they only had one major patch, then you just start scheduling a break. You
Mhm.
schedule a 2 week dead period between a major, like as soon as a major happens, okay, well, everyone's off for 2 weeks. Here's patch. And that gives a little bit of time for people to relearn. It's not, oh, here's a patch, and yeah, there's a tournament qualifier tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like that just needs to get factored in at some point, whether that's just post TI or every 3 months or whatever they want to do. But something
Yeah.
they definitely have to think about next year.
To their credit, they did do this patch after ES, like right after, of course, ESL Major. So it just happened that Dota Pit happened to be like that next week. So
Yeah, yeah,
it was going to be tough to fit it in. I guess technically it could have maybe waited for Dota Pit because now we've had a little bit of a gap and we have more qualifiers. So maybe they could have done that. But yeah, again, this goes back to they never, they clearly haven't fully thought this out.
yeah.
And
There
they
just
kind
needs
of,
to be an entirely dead, at least 1 week scheduled in next year where there's no
mhm,
qualifiers, no tournaments, nothing is allowed to be played.
yeah,
Just to give people time to get that going. I know a lot of the pros that stream for their revenue would really appreciate that, being able just to get a 40-hour stream weekend, uncontested by tournaments and everything else. So, anyway,
well, no, no. One more thing we do have to go over before we move on here is the ESL major, real quickly. We did do our predictions for the ESL major. You thought I was going to go along without bringing this up.
yeah,
I happen to choose it perfectly correct. I chose Virtus Pro first and Secret second. That's exactly what happened. So pat myself on the back. Your Liquid EG finals did not happen
no,
for
no,
you.
it
So
didn't. No, no.
I was totally confident with my guess, but now with this format, obviously it could have gone anyway. But um, I got that
It's
going
funny
for
because
me.
with the
So
way the group shaked out, it almost could have. EG lost to Newbie in game 3 of the group stages in like
yeah,
a 60-minute shootout, which would have put them on opposite sides of the bracket, EG and Liquid. But
mhm.
you can always talk about what ifs. Congratulations. I cede the
Thank
first
you.
major to you.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well, we'll keep it tallying that. Obviously, we missed the Dota pit here with the break and everything, but we'll do our best to keep the predictions coming and have some kind of scoring system with that. So still have to figure that part out yet. But all right, so we've mentioned the patch though. We mentioned the patch, of course, with Dota pick happening. But now we've actually gotten a little bit of time to get a feel for the patch and how it's been playing out. Now that we've had a little bit of time, I know that there was one thing for you that you kind of thought from this patch that was going to be and is proving to be pretty impactful with it, and that's more on the mechanic side, more like the starting goal, the TP, item purchases you have here. So, like, we want to go more into that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. No, the one thing I noticed is they changed a lot of the costs of regen. Tango is obviously severely more expensive, and what that's done is create this weird shakeup of starting items. We're still seeing a bunch of people try to go Tango's a stout shield and a hatchet, and you grab it from the side shop, but it's starting to show that that's not the efficient start anymore. We're starting to see some people starting with things like Mango two branches to get a wand early on. We're starting to see um, my personal favorite is honestly Mango two branches, a stout shield, and a salve. Like I think
Hmm.
salves are criminally underbought in laning phase right now, and with the changes to tangos, they're even better. And the TP thing's obviously the big one. We're still seeing some mid laners going for bounty runes and then trying to port back to mid lane and block. And in pubs, whatever, do whatever you want. But in the competitive scene, I actually think that's a detriment, and I think that's a meta that needs to fade. The mid laner having a TP scroll in the games that we've seen it used, it's been so insanely impactful. Not having to spend that extra 50 gold and take the time to run it out on the courier uh, means we're seeing mid laners rotate at level 3, level 4,
Hmm.
as basically as soon as they can find a kill or any help in a lane, they're moving so much faster than they used to. And same thing with like hard fives. You know, your mid gets the hard five has a TP already to come in. It's really sped up the early game a lot, and I've really enjoyed what that's done so far to the game.
See, you're that's a perspective on it, but at the same time, so and again, I haven't casted a lot of matches in the patch here, unfortunately, yet. But in a little bit that I have done, and I've had a discussion about this with some of my co-casters for that as well. The early TPs has actually incentivized a lot of this lane movement in terms of swapping.
Hmm.
So where we usually have that mind game coming about of where they're going to lane, and then we may in previous patches we may initially see that first swap take place, and then that's kind of just how it plays out. Whatever the lane moves on, we had one game where they literally swapped back and forth. I want to say 4 or 5 different times. And sure, I mean, they ultimately still have to buy the TPs in the future ones, but I think it's just that first TP, having that freedom of the first teleport that you just automatically get to use is what's getting this mentality of we're going to go into the lane, see how if it's something that we like or not. And if it's not, we're just going to make that swap. And then the other team obviously can react though, because they too have their TP. So there is that aspect as well that is, I mean, but again, it's whether that's bad or not, I guess it's up for debate.
I think it's
But
great because it puts more emphasis on the draft. You can't draft badly losing lanes and expect to be able to swap your way out of them anymore. The enemy team is going to follow you, and I really do like what that does to the game. It puts more emphasis on the draft, and now when your coach can be there for the draft, I think that's going to overall make the game better.
mhm. Yeah, I don't know. It's been very interesting. I will say also the something else to take into consideration is the idea that you cannot use that TP, of course, initially, and so it prevents the idea of supports TPing in to get that very aggressive ward down
Yep,
and get that early information for their team. So again, another case of good or bad, but just kind of the snowballing effect from
for
what may
sure.
seem like a minor change initially, but yeah, it does have a lot of impact
Oh, a
when
lot
you
of these
kind of break it
changes that
down.
seem super minor extrapolated out really heavily into the game. Stuff like the new deny changes where denying someone just destroys them in lane, even more than just kind of pushing them out like it used to. This is leading to dual lanes again, which I think are amazingly fun to watch. I think it's the most dynamic type of Dota. I've really liked what this patch has done for meta shakeups, and it wasn't in the huge sweeping changes that came about. It was the minor things.
Mm-hmm. 100% agree. And yeah, so far what we've been able to watch has been definitely quite entertaining. So, obviously, so we're not going to sit here and talk about the whole patch by any
No,
means. I mean, that
no.
could be the whole show plus more in itself. But just a couple of those things wanted to address as we have kind of picked up into the season. I'm sure we'll see when we'll talk about more as the season does continue on here with these changes. But something else I did want to touch on though with the patch was the new items that did come with the patch, and whether or not we were going to see these new items, and if we should be seeing these new items specifically in these competitive matches.
Hmm.
Of the new items, obviously you had what was it, the soul vessel? No, spirit vessel. It's called soul vessel here. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Spirit vessel, Aeon disc, Kaya, and meteor hammer. And then there's nullifier as well,
Yeah.
of course, replacing the whole purge
Yep.
effect there. So those are the 5 new items. Of these 5, safe to say Spirit Vessel's kind of the one that we should maybe expect to see and not maybe others.
It was also the one I criminally undervalued. Looking at the patch notes, that was the one I thought was going to be too expensive to get. No one was really going to put that amount of gold into it, but the active on it has just been so impactful in so many games. It's been way less situational than I first thought. Um, yeah, Soul Vessel or Spirit Vessel has been absolutely insane. That item is nuts.
Mm-hmm. It's just such a natural upgrade too to the urn. I mean, the vitality booster does make it a little bit awkward. It's a hefty
It's
item
really
at
nice for
1100 gold.
squishy supports, though.
Yeah, very true. And those 4 supports, especially that are going to be picking it up, that are looking to be active, in the front lines, like
Hmm.
your Night Stalker, your Spirit Breaker, or whatever, who are already picking up the urn. It's just again kind of just a natural upgrade, natural progress into the game.
Yep.
It's proven to be a very valuable item. So, uh,
Aeon Disc, I was pretty much dead on about. It's seeing play on hard initiators that don't really need to do that much damage. Brewmaster specifically is probably the biggest beneficiary of it. Just a nice, easy way to pretty much guarantee you're going to get split off and not get bursted before that. Um, but other than that, it's too niche to see a lot of play.
yeah, the buildup is the very unfriendly part. They even did buff it after in the 7.07B patch. I think they made the recipe like 100 or
Mhm.
150 gold less or something like that. But it's still, it's a vitality booster, energy booster, and then the recipe where you're paying a lot of gold basically for that passive effect, which again is good. But yeah, is that really something that you're going to be investing that money into over others?
Yeah,
And then Meteor Hammer is kind of the
that
that
item's
that was
garbage.
well, that was one right off the bat where people saw these new items, and that was, of course, stood out. And it's like, is it OP or is it horrible? As we've experienced over time, I think the consensus is that it's proven to be a pretty lackluster item.
The thing is, it's so close to being like a Dragonlance, where the stats alone are making it worth picking up. Like when Dragonlance was first launched, it was 16 agi, 16 strength. It was being bought on melee heroes just because it was so efficient. And it's very close to that because there is no recipe cost. Everything that you have in that Meteor Hammer factors into it. It just compounds.
Mhm.
And if they would just buff the strength and int numbers, I think people would buy that without even using the active. Like I've used it on stuff like Wraith King here and there, just to play around with getting that extra bit of regen, and it's worked very well.
Yeah.
But it's just not quite efficient enough. But that active is just unsalvageable. If they buff it, it's going to be broken. But right now, it's unusable.
Yeah. It really is. If anything, it's just more. It's a building pushing tool. It's the whole idea of the stun and using it for that purpose is just non-existent. If you
It
are going to be
stuns the
seeing a big,
tower though, for those of you that haven't actually used it,
yeah,
which is really cool.
that is true. That's actually good. It stuns barracks as well. No, I mean it
Oh
does, but
man,
doesn't actually do anything from that. I will say there was one game that I casted. It was actually Monkeys Forever of Leviathan. He actually
of
picked it up
course
on
it
his
was.
on Nature's Prophet. He went Meteor Hammer, Blink Dagger on Nature's Prophet, and he would blink in and try to just push the tower quickly and then fall back. Was kind of the idea. It
I'm
was
pretty sure
cute.
you do more damage with a Deso in that channel time for Meteor Hammer if you
Yeah,
just right click the building.
it was a cute idea. Let's just say it did not work
Oh,
out though.
Jaren.
So it's and then one that we haven't mentioned yet is the Kaya, of course. And actually, this is one
Kai
that
is very good.
yeah, on specific heroes, you got your Zeus, you got your Storm Spirit. I mean, any hero that's spamming mana probably wants this item, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Kaya is insane. I would go so far as to say it probably needs a minor tune down, maybe going to 8% instead of 10% on the numbers. Uh, because there's no way you're going to make it more viable on stuff that's not already buying it. But the people that are buying it, it's just way too efficient for its cost. It's such a cheap item. You get it so fast.
Hmm.
I think that item's in a scary spot for Dota balance.
And which item's worse, Meteor Hammer or Nullifier?
Meteor
That's a
Hammer's way
tough one.
worse.
Is it?
Nullifier's situationally busted. It's just
Hmm.
very situational.
Yeah, it's like what's well, I'm curious. So what's that situation you think? Like, it's
Man, what was the use case? I got destroyed by it. I mean, Clinks as a whole just uses that item insanely well. When he's strafing and clicks Nullifier on someone, they're basically perma-stunned.
oh, good
Like,
point. Okay.
it's only a 0.3 second slow, but that's enough when you're getting strafed. So there's use cases like that. The Dispel itself works just like the old Diffusal. So anytime you would have needed a Diffusal on like a strength carry, because you really needed a Diffusal, Nullifier
Mhm.
takes that place.
I guess like a troll could be interesting to see. Anyone with just like massive attack
Even
speed.
like Lifestealer in a certain,
Benefit.
like if you need to purge something, Lifestealer can make very good use of Nullifier.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, I mean, I haven't played a lot, but I mean, I haven't seen this yet in my pubs slash. I haven't seen it
I
in
bought
any
it
game.
3 times and twice it single handedly lost me the game. Once it won me the game. But yeah. So those are the new items. I'm done with that stuff. Let's talk more real Dota.
All right, so yeah, that's the patch discussion for now. Real Dota. Well, we got some real Dota coming up here. Starts. God, I guess it starts next week. Essentially, that's
Oh,
crazy.
does it?
I think. Well, let me check. Yeah, no, I think it does. So we're talking about the Perfect World Miner. This is the next event on the circuit. Of course, got the miner coming up. And it just so happens I'm going to be going to cast at the Perfect World Miner. I actually leave for Shanghai tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. We're recording this here on a Wednesday, and I leave at 5:30 a.m. in the morning tomorrow morning. So
AM in the morning, huh?
a.m. in the morning. It's going to be bright and early, and I got a 14-hour plus flight ahead of me. Looking forward
Fun,
to.
fun,
So
fun.
no, but so I'm obviously really excited about that. But again, this is the Perfect World Miner, and there's some interesting things to talk about this one. The right off the bat is the fact that there's 10 teams, but 4 of them are from China. 2 of them
Yep.
invited in Nubi and LFY, and then 2 qualified, LGD and Vici. We you kind of talked about this at the beginning of the circuit, and this could be a possibility. We're seeing it now happen, right? The
Mhm.
bias of one region's teams, in this case, China.
And it's not the only time, right? Dream League's going to be right after this. Dream League's having 8 European teams out of
Yeah.
their 16. Uh, that's why I said if everyone does it, it is what it is, and it's fine. But yeah, China's setting the standard pretty early that tilting the balance in your region's favor is okay. So obviously, as I said, Dream League's going to be doing it. I'm hoping BTS. I haven't looked at the way they're doing it, but I don't believe they're doing any sort of bias. Okay,
Well,
they
they have 2
technically did.
NA,
Yeah, they gave 2 NA. Um,
which they should.
my
Let's be
only
honest.
concern with this comes from the fact that certain regions just have far more tournaments than others.
Hmm.
China, especially. You've got Star Ladder, you've got Dota Pit, you've got Perfect World, you've got another Star Ladder like PGL. There's just so many tournaments that China gets.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, I don't think it's gonna destroy the system per se, but it does feel a little bad to me.
That's the biggest thing. This goes back to, and I'll sound like a broken record saying this, but this is a trial. This is we're gonna have to let it play out. We really can't overreact in the moment until it all plays out, and then we kind of look back and be like, all right, well, yeah, this was clearly an issue. The bias worked in the favor of this region. Let's make sure not to let that happen again. But could Valve have made a statement? Could they made a point on this that? But then again, that's them taking away from the helping aspect of the third party organizations, where it's still a business. I mean, these third party
Yeah,
organizations that are running it, they still want to run the business side of it, right? They want the
and
recognition.
I was gonna say there's a huge thing about having a local team go deep in your tournament. When you have a LAN event, like I went to the Shanghai Major, the total disaster one that James got fired from. Um and that one basically China didn't make top 8. They had 6 of the 16 or so I think were Chinese and none of them made top 8 and the stands just emptied until the grand finals day.
Mhm.
Obviously, people showed up then because they already had tickets. It's grand finals, whatever. But attendance just plummeted as soon as all the Chinese teams went out. So for these tournaments that are looking to actually pay the money to have an event, have a LAN, stacking it a little more in your favor can make it more exciting for your local viewers, which is a huge part of their revenue.
Yeah.
So I don't, from the business side, I get why they're doing it, and I don't really fault them for it. It's just up to Valve how much integrity they want in
Yeah.
these tournaments.
That's the biggest thing. 100%. And whenever I see the comments being made, because there's been events in the past where like Navi, for example, they were invited to, I think it was like a Star Ladder event or something in previous season. And it's just like, it's not, I get it, right, like they need to worry about themselves as well as making a return on their investment. If we're putting, it's not like this is free to put on, they do put a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of financial side. They want to make sure they're getting that return, and as you're pointing out, a local team going deep is going to help them. A sexy team is going to help them get that return, ideally because of the eyes that are on it. But it is that fine line now with this whole circuit system. Is that fair to the tournament itself that ultimately will be TI at the end, obviously, with how the circuit points play out? So, I will say, well, what does make it a little more fair to me is the fact that only the top 4 teams get points. Like, if every
Yeah,
team got points just even for qualifying in
for
the
sure.
first place, then yes, then obviously we have an issue. But you have to then actually get top 4 to have any kind of an impact from it, right? So that's where the line is for me, of like, that's why I think it ultimately is fine, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make changes because of that. But
And my final point on the topic is you got to be a little bit realistic too. China is going to get a little more fan service. If you look at the viewer numbers across every platform for every tournament, we'll just take Hamburg, like 3.5 million viewers. 3.2 of those were Chinese.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Obviously, there's talk that they inflate their numbers, that this, that, and the other thing. They're not inflating their numbers tenfold. They do
Mhm.
have a lot more viewers than any other region. So viewers translate into ads translate into microtransactions and purchasing other things. And there's reason to focus a little more on China from the business side.
Mhm.
And if we want that to change, that's meaning getting your friends to watch. That's getting your family involved. That's getting our viewership up to a level that matters.
That's true. Point is, those 4 teams are going from China. It's still going to be a great event nonetheless. I mean, obviously 10 teams in total. And the next thing I wanted to talk about here on this event was the format of it. And obviously that's
Sure.
been a interesting topic from event to event, kind of seeing what format they've decided to go with. I was talking with you about this last night as we were preparing for the show, that I feel like, not biased because I'm going, but I feel like the Perfect World Masters Minor, it's called Perfect World Masters, which is stupid, but anyways, it has the best format so far. And what it is, it's 2 groups of 5 teams in each group. They play round robin. I believe it's, I'm honestly not sure if it's best of 3 or best of 2. It doesn't say here. Group stage will be best of 2, so it's best of 2 matches. So you play 2 games each. Top 4 move on to a double elimination playoff stage where all the teams are on the winner side, and then they play it out to eventually find the champion and even get a third place match from it. So it's not the ultimate perfect format, but especially for a minor, I think this is great.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely want to see some amount of teams cut in group stage, and they are going to cut 1 team from each group. So that gets rid of 2. I think that's the best way to get rid of the teams that maybe shouldn't have been there, or if a region's super weak, you cut out their qualifier real quick and get them out of the tourney. And then, as you said, yeah, straight double limb. Everyone started seated in the winner bracket. I think this is pretty good. This is pretty good. It doesn't alleviate the issue that we're going to have some group stage games that just don't matter in the later stages. We're going to have times where, okay, well, we already know what 4 are moving on. We know this team's out, so
Mm-hmm.
meh. But other than that, it's a very, very competitive format. I love double limb best of threes. I think that's just a clean way to do it. And we're going to have a lot of games. There's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
games in this tournament.
that's what's kind of hitting me too. Because again, I happen to be casting this. I'm realizing, I mean, that's good and bad, right? Like, hell, I'm there to cast Dota. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, it might be some long days, especially since the group stages, I believe, only last 2 days.
And there will
So
be 96 games, I think,
from the
in just the group
groups,
stages.
really, that's I mean, I guess that could make sense, yeah, because each team plays 8 games in total with best of 2. 96 seems
So
like
80.
more, but Anyway, the point
80
is, it's
games.
going to be a lot. Again, only over 2 days. Obviously, I assume it's going to be a case of we're not going to cast every single match at that point, but
I imagine you go multi-stream would be my guess.
probably. We'll probably do multi-stream. There probably won't be a panel for that part. And then the main event will, I'm sure, have a panel of sorts and
Yeah.
so that. And that lasts over like 4 or 5 days, I think. Like this honestly is a very legit event. Like a lot of these other events have been
It's a
like
week.
3 days, 4. Yeah, this is a full week plus as far as the event itself. So I think
And you don't get a lot of time to rest. You fly out tomorrow. It basically takes the entire day to get there. You get one day off, and then you're working, aren't you?
going into it, going the grind. I get to see complexity there. That's all that matters for me.
I was going to mention it.
Gotta plug in complexity at least once every podcast show, and this is their moment here.
This
so
podcast sponsored by Complexity Dota.
hey, maybe you never know. Get Jerry Jones on here or something.
Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna be a good tournament. I'm looking at the pool of teams. It seems like it could have been stronger from each region for the most part, but it's gonna be a good event.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. All right, so those are our big discussion topics that we figured to bring up during this podcast here, but it doesn't mean we're finished yet by any means. Still plenty more to go over. And actually, again, talking of a new format here, we're now going to go into our game segment portion of the show. And for this week's episode, we decided to go with what's a simple fill in the blank. So we're going to fill in the blank here as far as giving our answers, short tidbit on why we chose, and then move on from there. So let's start with the first question here. The team most likely not to be as high in the circuit in a couple of months is blank. So we talked about the circuit earlier. Which of those teams do you think is not going to be up there on that list of top teams?
Secret.
Team Secret. Yeah, they're second right now. No.
Yeah,
why? I mean, it's just
I'm thinking about how I want to word this here. Pedigree. We've seen, especially Fada, and honestly to a lesser degree Ace, they go on heaters. They go nuts. Fada on C9. No, not C. Oh, ended up being C9. NP just went off for a good month and a half, 2 months. I mean, he almost single-handedly carried them to events, and then it stopped. He all of a sudden started getting beat in his lane again. He started becoming a near non-factor in some of his games. Ace has just crumbled under pressure in the past. I think they'll still be a good team. I don't think they'll even be in the top 4.
My only thing with Secret, just to react to that real quickly, is they play in Europe. And outside of them having to compete against Liquid to qualify for events, they're going to be qualifying for events, it feels like.
True.
So they're already kind of getting the best chance to obviously earn points at a lot of these events due to that. But yeah, no, I mean, I do think that they definitely will have their downs for sure. So for me, my answer would be Mineski. I don't see Mineski. They've had a very hot start to the season. Obviously, the roster has come together very well. But we've already seen, what was it, the captain's draft event, I believe Fnatic actually qualified, or no, that was a Summit. It was a Summit 8 qualifiers happened recently. Fnatic actually ended up defeating them now with Abed, of course, as their new mid player. They won that series over them. And then TNC just this morning beat Mineski to qualify for the MDL minor. That's going to be coming up in Macau here in the near future. So Mineski already now, with the new patch and everything, is slipping up a little bit. Obviously, we'll see how they do at Perfect World, but in a couple of months from now, I would not be surprised to see Mineski definitely drop down on the circle list there. So
no faith in Darnell, man.
None, absolutely none. Hey, they're going to be they're still potentially going to be a top team out of Southeast Asia, but
Daryl. Words. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think there's reasonable competition in that region now, especially if Fnatic starts showing up. So I can see your point there for sure.
Do you want to go? Yeah, let's do this. How about US the next one now? We'll kind of
all right. So the most underused hero in this patch is blank.
That's a tough one, actually.
I got mine.
Let's see yours first then.
Underlord. Absolutely Underlord.
Okay. Underlord, yeah.
I think he struggles to lose his lane. He can always find farm. If he can't find it in lane, he falls back to the jungle. I think Dark Rift is one of the filthiest, most underused abilities still in Dota. The new talent to Firestorm being able to push buildings with it now is just absurd. Uh, we've all seen Pit of Malice shenanigans where if he gets an Athos or a Yule, someone's just not allowed out of the pit. I think that hero is so underused, B borderline broken.
Mhm. So for me, I mean, one hero that I was actually really curious to see if he would make an appearance is Tiny. Now, I understand we are seeing this core Tiny starting to really step up, especially in the NA scene. But honestly, I thought support Tiny may have become fairly relevant. More of this kind of four roaming support Tiny because of the change as far as the toss itself being a little bit less mana cost, the talents included. You get the earlier damage now at level 10, the avalanche damage at level 15. And then just walking around with this tree to hit people as well for that extra added burst of damage. It seemed like that was going to be a potential, but we're seeing him in more core instead, which I guess I get. And so that maybe that's just the way we should expect to see him ultimately. But
yeah, I think the big issue with him is he's not impactful really at level 1, and that's the biggest problem. Like roamers have to be able to do something right out of the chute right now, and they can't with Tiny.
Kind of going through the list. There is one other one, Necrophos. I know got like nerfed quite a bit, but frankly, like the nerfs, maybe I'm not thinking about this correctly, but the nerfs didn't seem like they were the nerfs that would hurt the idea of the hero. For the idea that he pops Ghost Shroud, he just massively heals, pops his magic wand, all of a sudden he's back to full life, right? Like he still does that really. So
with Soul Vessel, now he doesn't. He gets aggressively Soul Vesseled and it just destroys him.
Oh yes, wait, Soul Vessel. You mean
or Spirit Vessel? Words.
I was like, wait, is that an ability? Spirit Vessel, yes. Okay, that's
like that item alone pretty much neutered Necro.
On top of the nerfs, I guess. All right, fair enough. Okay,
that's my big take on that one.
All right, next question. The first hero to be heavily nerfed from the new patch will be blank.
I'm gonna go a little off the wall here. I'm gonna say Medusa.
Medusa has been seeing a lot of action in this.
It's too safe. It doesn't lose very many lanes very hard. Medusa's thing used to be that she was just useless for a long time until that breakpoint where she became a god. And with the changes to Split Shot, where 1 point of it still helps you farm incredibly quickly now, I really do think she's just overtuned to a spot that she's relevant all game without giving up that late game god status.
Yeah, we have been seeing a lot of Medusa, that is for sure, with this patch so far. Part of me, God, there was one. Part of me wants to say Omni Knight, but I don't know about heavily nerfed because again, he's one of those cases where we are starting to see him again, and he's one of those dangerous heroes that whenever he starts to get played a fair amount, people like start reacting to it. All of a sudden, he kind of picks up, and then whether it's a nerf or I guess some counter picks to him start happening in response, and then kind of just dies off again. So,
sure.
I don't know if like heavy nerfs are coming his way, but he'd be one I'd be looking for in terms of being heavily nerfed. If not him, though, Beastmaster, I could see being heavily nerfed.
That one, okay. Yeah, that one's more reasonable.
Yeah. As far as actually getting some big nerfs, because his changes are clearly we talked about
the Wild Axe damage amp is just disgusting.
It's pretty.
It's the most subtle buff that he got, but it is so good.
He's always been a great offlaning solo hero, but it just excels him that much more. The level 4 Call of the Wild, now you get that random, like no matter what minion you get, you're happy with it. You can definitely make use of it in some sense. Yeah, he's a really strong hero right now. So
for sure,
definitely could see him getting some kind of nerfs. Maybe like I'm noticing his talents, he has a 25% XP gain at level 10. Maybe that's something that I don't know if the level is getting out of control. It's crazy, but anyways. All right, so next one.
All right.
So okay, yeah, for this one, I guess. So we'll go by region, by each region for this one.
Yep. All right. So teams to beat in each region. Who is top dog in each region right now? Let's start with China.
Start with a really fun one, huh?
We'll start with China.
Start with China here. I mean, for me, it's newbie. For me, it still has to be newbie. Like they're the same roster, runner up at TI. I don't see how that changed for me. And I was actually noticing today in preparation for the Perfect World Minor that they've played the most games pretty much out of any team since the patch. They play nearly 30
Mhm.
games, which is the most. I mean, they are grinding right now. And
Honestly, I'm just gonna agree with you and move on.
yeah,
I don't even think it's really a question. Right now, it is newbie. I think that could change very rapidly. The region's super volatile, but
yeah.
still newbie.
Beachy
Yeah,
Gaming is making a splash lately, so everyone wants to
they're
keep an eye
getting
on.
there. They're getting there.
Yeah,
But
newbie for
team to
sure.
beat's not the up and comer. That's the big difference.
Very
So,
true.
all right, let's just go west from there. CIS.
Virtus Pro. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
that's a pretty
Yep.
easy one too, right? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no question there. I mean, Empire is right next, like next in line, maybe, but yeah, no, it's VP has to be.
I feel like everything's gonna be real boring until we get to one region. Europe.
Liquid,
Yep.
almost at secret,
Yep.
but then you have to remember that Liquid gets invited to everything, so
And they're still winning.
and they're still winning that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't know. SEA.
See, that's where it starts to get tough, in my opinion, because I part of me wants to start saying Fnatic now. Like Abed's that good of a player, and they're already seeing the impact, right? They qualify for Summit 8, as I just mentioned, defeating Mineski. Sure enough, they came from behind 2-0 in that series to win 3-2. Like I I I'm gonna say Fnatic for that reason. I think that this is the beginning of them starting to have a big impact now.
I mean, I'll be devil's advocate and still say Mineski. I think we have essentially a variant of NP over in Eternal Envy's Fnatic versus what should be the SEA powerhouse. You've got Mushi, you have Ice Ice Ice, Jabs all in one team. This is supposed to be the best players in the region combined.
Mhm.
I still think they've put out enough results. They're still showing themselves as the top team in the region, but Fnatic's definitely looking better for sure. Uh,
South
South America.
America, SG Esports. They've been qualifying for everything out of SA for the most part. I mean, there was a well, what's the new team out of South America? What are they called again?
Sacred?
Sacred. That's right. They're one to look out for. They just qualified here recently, didn't they? To the Summit 8. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes, they did.
but again, we're talking about
Yeah,
the top dogs,
that's
SG Esports.
I agree. Yeah, for sure. Sacred though, definitely one to watch out for. Another iteration of Infamous, basically.
Mhm.
So see how that looks. And the fun one that we'll actually talk about, NA.
I got the chuckle going on because you know it has to be EG. It does. You can't like they were the team that
Does it?
it does. They were the team that qualified for the first major this season. Like, and they also just qualified for something else here. I want to say, let me pull it up. Yeah, they qualified for Dream League. Actually, they did defeat Complexity there. So to me, until we see this big upset over them, I still can't suggest that they're not the top dogs as much as I want to say Complexity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. I want to say Optic, but again, when EG has to play a qualifier, they've shown fairly consistently that they're going to make it out of that qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
They're still the team in the region. They still put up huge international competition. I think there are arguably better teams in the region right now than EG, but they still have the results where it counts.
Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, they've actually only had to play in well, they played in 3 qualifiers. One was ESL, which they qualified. One was Dream League, which they qualified, as just mentioned. The other one was the Star Ladder early on in the season where they lost to Leviathan. That's right. They got knocked out by Leviathan. Now, granted, that was at the very beginning of the season, and they're just making their transition. So, yeah, it's obviously that was a hiccup there, but things have changed.
Hiccup's an understatement, but yeah,
They lost to Leviathan. That's
they
right.
lost the Leviathan.
Props to
All
those
right, all
guys.
right.
So yeah, but yeah, EG as much as it pains. So yeah, you would say Optic though. I would say Complexity for sure. If it wasn't them, of course. All right, and
Chelsea's gonna get worse.
we got let's hope not. We'll see how that goes. The teams that will finish first and second at Perfect World. You thought we were gonna miss on that? Nope, we saved it for here. So now we got our prediction time for the Perfect World event coming up here. first and second place. Who you got?
I might be stealing your answers here. I'm gonna take secret first, complexity second.
Secret first, huh? So you just got finished talking about how they're going to be falling down the charts, yet you have
They're
them
gonna
winning the
get
recliner.
worse. They're not there yet. We got to see how Chessie does traveling, though. That's always a big risk to me.
Yeah.
He's been plagued by back injuries his whole life, and we'll see. But I'm feeling good about them right now. I am.
I'm doing it. Complexity first, VG Gaming second. That's what I got.
Wow.
VG second. VG is a strong team out of China recently, and they are looking up. So that's what I got.
I do like
winning it.
that Vici lineup. That Vici lineup's so fun.
Always been a fan of Paparazzi.
Dude, he's just after the video about Lanham, that guy's just awesome.
Cole VG. So you chose secret. Yeah, Cole finishing runner up. Damn, I like it. Yes, here I'm getting you on board.
That's the only NA team. I gotta give some support.
We are so biased here, man. We both have
Oh,
Cole
I absolutely
finishing
am.
top 2 for a 10-team tournament in China.
All right, let's be fair though. They reasonably can finish ahead of SG Esports, Kingwin, Vega, probably LGD and FY are toss-up games. Mineski's a toss-up game. I think Newbie, Secret, Vici are the only ones that are probably heavily favored going into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that heavy is only like 60-40. I don't think Complexity is an 80-20 underdog in most series anymore.
And Complexion is a team that definitely benefits from a newer patch, in my opinion. They're one of those,
oh, absolutely,
yeah, where they're kind of on even footing because of that. So, they obviously Kyle's proven that he's not afraid to also be different when it comes to drafting, and he likes these moments where they get.
And they like Brewmaster, which I think is just nuts right now. That hero is just so good.
Yeah, they like Tiny, which is also pretty nuts if you run it correctly. So. Yeah, there is possibility. I mean,
all right. Quick aside: did you happen to see Ritsu's Twitter post about Tiny a couple days ago or yesterday?
I saw him complaining about the patch in general, but no, what did he say?
No, after they won that game where he played Tiny.
Oh no.
He posted a screenshot of like the pub game list, and it had like 7 notable pros all playing Tiny.
I did see that actually. Yeah. Yeah. He's
that was great.
I don't think other regions are running him though. That's the thing. It's like one of those
no.
NA heroes right now.
Well, and honestly, for those that don't know how the pro scene works, a lot of the times you can't practice a brand new hero in a scrim. You don't get enough volume. So the way a pro like learns a hero is same way you would if you were first starting Dota. You go grind 50 games with it. Mm-hmm. Like Ike's Mike didn't know how to play Lone Druid. He spent a week just playing Lone Druid every solo queue game he played. So I think we're going to see a lot more pros playing this kind of stuff in pubs.
Try to keep an eye on what people are playing in pubs coming up here.
Honestly, that's a good insight to bring into cast if you when you're at a LAN event, something like that. Just flip through the players, see what they grinded a week before the tournament. I mean, other games do that, and it's insane how accurate it is.
No, I noticed going into TI qualifiers even that a lot of, or actually it was TI itself, I think it was, just because I happened to, I was excited to watch it. I saw there were several players grinding Arc Warden. And sure enough, Eternal Envy was one of those actually for Team NP, and we did see that, of course, make the appearance, including in their final match. They tried to move on with. So, yeah, no, I agree with you in full. That definitely looking at the pub list is a good way to go about it. And that's going to do it for our fill in the blank segment, at least. So again, we'll kind of change that up from show to show as far as the style of game, perhaps, but. Had some fun there. Good way to talk about those things. And that leads us into what will then be our final segment of this show here. Going to be called, in the previous Dot Pro, there was a segment at the very end that I did in the beginning. It was called a Surge. The idea was that it's supposed to be kind of like, all right, let's quickly go over everything that we haven't covered yet in the show, but not take too long. So we're kind of bringing that back, but it's going to be more of we're going to bounce back and forth, basically. And we'll give short answers, very short explanation, and then advance on. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and get into the Surge. We're going to start with some roster changes. Specifically, we'll first look at DC. Okay, yeah, we'll do it this way. We'll do a thumbs up or thumbs down for DC. Koikva replacing Abed. IX Mike stepping in as the coach. Thumbs up, thumb down, Zrock.
I'm gonna give this a thumbs up. Overall, I think it brings a little more stability to the team. Uh, it may be a little less explosive than Abed was at certain points, but I think it's going to be a lot more consistent and they'll be a little bit more stable in their results.
All right, agree with you there.
And what are you thinking about Fnatic after picking up Abed? Did replace Excalibur there.
I do feel bad for Excalibur, but this has to be a thumbs up indeed for Abed joining the ranks of Fnatic. Abed, of course, going back to his roots in a sense, obviously from Southeast Asia in the first place. And it just feels like he's going to be much more comfortable there. He got some nice experience with DC before that, coming to NA and getting to play over here. But if anything, that's just going to expand, his possibilities and his knowledge of what to expect.
You're not worried about Throw Lord Envy and then hit or miss Abed all in one team?
I mean, I'm not saying.
That...
I guess I did choose Fnatic, looking good for Southeast Asia earlier. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect by any means, but it's definitely.
I think that team is going to be the most up and down team in the region. When they win, they're going to win so handily. It's going to look like they're the best team in the world, and then it's just going to be like E dropping 2 rapiers and losing a game.
Yeah, some fun times ahead for sure with that team. They are going to be one to watch. That is no doubt. Dream League happening right now, still happening as we speak as far as the qualifiers. However, NA wrapped up as we mentioned. EG did defeat Complexity 2-0 on the way to qualifying for that major. Secret and Liquid have currently claimed spots out of the EU CIS region. You have Virtus Pro, Na'Vi, and OG fighting for those last 2 spots. Your thoughts, Zrock?
That's a lot of info. Yeah, I think just look at the 3 teams left fighting for the last 2 slots. That's going to be a shootout. OG's obviously been looking a little out of form. VP looking very dominant, but they're not out yet. They're not through yet. Versus Na'Vi, you just can't get rid of these guys.
No.
Like, I want to rule Na'Vi out of so many things. Like, oh, they're not as individually skilled. Their team play's lacking. This, that, and the other thing. And yet they just always compete. Like right now, the way the standings are, OG's the one most at risk of being eliminated.
Yep. They're very likely going to. It's probably going to be Na'Vi and VP over this. It's just 2 more days.
They'd need VP to 2-0 Na'Vi, and then OG has to win out.
OG struggling.
So basically, Na'Vi needs to lose their last 2 series, and OG needs to 4-0 their last 2. So chances there, but it's definitely going to be an interesting day of Dota. That's for sure. I would really like to see Na'Vi OG, but that's, I believe, statistically impossible now. So anyway, yeah, that's where that's standing.
Bonus on that. OG, are they the most disappointing team of this new season so far?
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty obvious. I just kind of wanted to get a fun way to answer that question.
It's a very fun team, and when you factored in the fact that I honestly said, I don't know if you remember our Dot Pro show, when the Rezo for Ana move happened, I said this move would actually hurt them. I thought Ana brought a very stable amount of gameplay to them. I thought that was their rock in every game, and as much as the internet was shitting on him, I thought he was fantastic. And they are struggling. They've been a big disappointment, and all of this to me echoes back to No Tail still at the carry role. Yeah. He's never looked comfortable there to me. He's had glimmers of hope in good games, but that just doesn't seem like the style he wants to play. So I actually think OG's the team most in chance of a roster move.
That'll be interesting to see. What and if they do.
All right. Well, what do you think? Fair or foul that Newbie and Infamous qualifier was a very long time ago, almost a month and a half?
Yeah, it was basically about a month and a half, 2 months ago for the Dream League here we're getting at. So I do think it's foul, especially with a new patch hitting. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, again, we're talking about a major here after all. This is a very big deal. The fact that these teams got to qualify well in advance, it just seems silly to me. I get it, though. There's scheduling conflicts, but man, let's just hope this is not a trend of teams qualifying 2 months, month and a half in advance before a LAN takes place. It needs to be less than a month, ideally.
I mean, just look at Infamous. What has that team done in the last month? You have SG Esports in that qualifier, and they got knocked out in the first round. If this was replayed, I don't even think that's a question who's winning that.
No, yeah, it would be S tier sacred at that point for sure. Obviously, newbie, but by all means, could still get in. But it's it's the infamous is the one that it just feels off. But
Yeah,
it's happening. They're sticking to it. OG,
indeed.
it's back to OG right here. Some fun drama with OG. Well, more so on Summit side. They actually invited OG as their invite team over Virtus Pro, despite Virtus Pro being the defending champions, by the way, and them leading the circuit rankings. Simply because LD hinted at that on Twitter that they were told by VP in passing, basically after TI, that they were not going to be interested in playing any minor events in the upcoming season, or having to qualify, or playing them in general, I should say. So that's why they went ahead and invited OG. Apparently, according to Lil, that this was not the case. Slash, they thought it was ridiculous. They expected an invite. What is this about?
It's TI. A lot of people talk. A lot of people say things offhandedly, off the cuff. I mean, I made a very bold prediction that even hit Reddit that a higher up at EG said the team was going to be cut down to 1 to 2 people and rebuilt, and that obviously didn't end up being true. That was said 3 or 4 times at TI. A lot of things come out of people's mouths at that event. A lot of them can't be taken as law. I think this is honestly a lack of professionalism on the Summit side to not do the due diligence and just send the invite out and then let it get declined officially, versus just taking one of those passing comments and using it as law.
Mhm.
At least there's some salvaging in the fact that VP's ownership and manager weren't upset about it. They said it's fine. You know, they seem pretty respectful there. And then VP just smashed the qualifier anyway.
That's
So
we'll see. That's where if I'm these other CIS teams too, that's you're probably frustrated, right? Because that pretty much screwed your chance of ever qualifying. Empire, Vega, etc. So
for sure. Yeah. And then, I mean, if you look at the Euro qualifier, like Liquid opted not to participate in this tournament. Kingwin's been smashing qualifiers and then doing nothing after that.
well,
This reminds me of, honestly, South America with the way Infamous was for a long time, where they couldn't compete internationally. They struggled to take games off any team outside of South America, but they would just decimate qualifiers. I'm wanting Kingwin to step up a little more here.
yeah, Kingwin, Virtus Pro, Sacred, and Fnatic all qualify for Summit 8. On top, we mentioned Fnatic earlier, and again, Sacred, the new South America team. But yeah, Kingwin's definitely the standout one for me as well. Again, we happen to be casting, or get a casting at the Perfect World Minor coming up here. And now this is another event that they're going to get to go to. So I will say this is a bit of a dark horse team at the same time to look out for as the circuit picks up, because this is one of the longest standing teams. They're up there with the Virtus Pro, for example, as far as they've been together for a very long time. At least 4 out of those 5 players formerly Let's Do It, formerly Alternate Attacks, etc. So that has to speak for something, considering they're also, happen to be very skilled players out of the Poland, I believe, is where they're all from. So no, I do think Kingwin has potential to make some things happen, but it's still early on, and yeah, that's so far the results haven't been the best as far as past the qualifiers.
Indeed.
Okay, I think we made it. We made it through the surge. We made it through the show. I think that's good. We hit just over the hour mark right here, and honestly, as we were talking about that's kind of what we want to try to shoot for, is around that time. So
yeah, so we are looking to do some more fun stuff here, guys. I mean, we want your feedback. That's the one thing that honestly keeps me going most of all in this stuff, is the Twitter messages and the comments, and you guys showing that you listen, that you're interested, that this is even useful to you. So we want to do other things, like bring some other people on, and versus just doing a straight interview segment, maybe integrating them into the show a little more, giving their own thoughts on these same kind of topics. We want to do a lot of things, but we need your support on this. We need to know that you guys want this. I enjoy doing this. It's always a lot of fun to me, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
Same here as well, absolutely. So yeah, again, going back to the idea that the Patreon that we are going to be launching here now, any support is appreciated. We want to not only help get guests on, but obviously do more production, which is some music in between segments or whatever it may be, to even possibly getting to go to some events. That's down the line, but being able to go to some events like we kind of did for Ti here recently, and do some live shows from there, and get some.
Dude, the live TI show was so
It was. It
fun.
was a lot of
That was
fun. Yeah,
great.
we happened to have a great guest on there, Swift ending actually from that was Hellraisers at the time
Rip.
there. Yeah, well, no longer, but anyways, the point is, it was a great time, and so stuff like that we would love to keep doing. But no, I definitely agree with you there too. In that, give us feedback, let us know what you think about this show, our new format, and everything. And also, as we mentioned, if you have name ideas, and also when during the week you think would be the most appropriate to release a show, feel free to let us know. Again, at this point, we plan to do it once every 2 weeks. We'll also continue to gauge how that works moving forward. But Zrock, I think officially good to wrap it up here. Any shout outs? Any last word from yourself before we do?
Nah, I'm good. Shout out to everyone listening. Shoot me a message at ZRRock on Twitter. Let me know what you think.
And me at BreakyCPK on Twitter. I am BreakyCPK, was joined by Zrock here. Thanks for tuning in, guys, to this Dota 2 competitive show. Think of a fun name and be more appropriate with that. Until next time, guys, have a good night. We'll see you then.